Hello, my name is Zach Short, and today I will be going over higher order thinking for a lesson plan for high school language arts class, 11th grade junior level. The period lasts approximately 50 minutes, and for this particular lesson that we'll be going over, it will take one class period. The learning objective will be for students that after reading The Outcast of Poker Flat by Bret Harte, students will be able to analyze the theme of goodness in the story and apply it to real life situations based on its place in naturalist literature. This represents higher order thinking because students will be asked to analyze and apply. They will also be tying things from the text um, to the broader literary subgenre of naturalism. Also, we'll have them look at how it applies to their own life. One of the things that we try to do in the language arts class is draw connections between personal experiences and what the author gives for us through, stories and poems and essays, things of that nature. The anticipatory set for this lesson will last approximately 5 minutes. What I will do as the class settles down and instruction begins for the day is I will have students write down a time when they participated in an act of goodness for another person or a time when another person demonstrated an act of goodness for them. This could be something as simple as sharing a Coca-Cola with another person, or giving your Coke to another person, or giving your Capri Sun to your little sister, something like that. But I want them to think of a time where they did something good, and it could just be telling a joke and brightening someone's day, or carrying a student's book bags, uh, to their car for them, just to help them out. And I just want the wheels to start spinning for the day, as we're introducing this lesson about, positive acts, good acts that people are capable of, for no rhyme or reason. It may have been just something completely unexpected, or, it's just part of who they are. But I want to get the wheels turning in that direction. What I will have them do for the anticipatory set is have the students write the experience down on a piece of paper and hand it in to me so that I can look over it and assess it. Or if they choose to work with their technology devices, they can simply use it, write it on Notability, Pages, Word, however they feel most comfortable, and then email the response to me so that I can look over it, and their brains will be warmed up a little bit, and I can see how they're thinking as well. After the anticipatory set, we'll transition into direct instruction and modeling, and this will take approximately 20 minutes of the 50-minute class hour. And what I will do with the students is I will have them review that theme of goodness in the story. They can look at the good acts on the overall spectrum of things. It's a very negative, bleak story, and much of naturalism is. It tends to go that way. Man cannot defeat nature. Nature is indifferent and all of that. But those threads of goodness, which really help develop the characters and push plot along, are extremely important. And I want them to be able to, understand that fully, how it applies not only to the story, but the actions of people they know or themselves. I will ask, is goodness, a natural quality of humans? Are we inherently good? Um, is that something that we maybe not strive to be, but just naturally we tend to lean towards being good people, helping others, being charitable, being servants of God, and things like that. And then I'll also ask them, is it easier to demonstrate goodness when faced with a bleak situation? And what the students will, have to be working out amongst themselves, and, obviously with my help and my interpretation, is that if we are faced in an impossible situation, and it could be death as it is in the story, but it could just be, you know, we've just had a terrible day and there's really not a good option. Is it easier for us to be behave good then? You know, is it easier for us to offer something to another person? Um, and we'll talk about certain examples of that, maybe specific examples from their lives, much like the anticipatory set, and definitely examples from the story with our four exiled characters. To continue the direct instruction and modeling, and because, you know, being in a language arts class, it is very much dependent on me to lead discussion, but to get students interacting not only with me at the front of the room or as I walk around the room, but also with each other. I will also, you know, shift the focus more towards the story and have the students describe the importance goodness has on the plot of the story. You know, how does the good acts of the exiled characters help uh, help push the plot along and get us to that final, you know, that final moment where we realize certain things about John Oakhurst, as he's the strongest and the weakest, as it is. And we'll also look on that, not only as it push plots, but how did those acts of goodness help the characters? Ultimately, it didn't save them, but how did it help them? How did it help us see them? And so we'll be using some higher order thinking in that, because we're really gonna have to get in and kind of evaluate, but we're gonna have to analyze. You know, what was author intent? What was the result of their actions? You know, and then apply it to these questions and our reasoning. To continue the direct instruction and modeling, we will also focus on using the use of goodness and death in the story to show that important naturalist literary theme, which is the indifference of nature, and how, you know, eventually nature will win out. You may survive the storm, but ultimately one day, you know, you will perish. So uh, we'll be talking about that. And the question is to really kind of spur this discussion and understanding, is, you know, the students are taking notes and making, you know, drawing parallels and making applications. Is what's going on. Is I'll ask, why did the good acts not save the characters? This falls in line with, you know, what could be perceived as fair, but what we'll see is that in naturalism, you know, nature doesn't care. The snowfall that trapped them didn't care. It was unconcerned with the good acts they were committing. And so a frustration for juniors in high school may be, well, they did all these good things and they weren't bad people. Why would it end this way? Well, to help draw out the theme of naturalism, we would simply say because nature isn't concerned with those acts of goodness. And then we could further that by saying, but other people are. Um, you know, certainly being a good person, the golden rule, is important on other things. And so from our discussion, we shift into guided practice for another 20-minute section of the 50-minute class. And in this, I want students to create, and I want them to create a situation where people who seem bad based on first impression or appearance demonstrate active goodness. Now they can consider you know, things that they have seen, things they experienced, or they can create a person. And that person they could totally use a stereotype, give them nose rings and tattoos and a really tough look, because, you know, our perceptions are, you know, they're based visually. And we always say, you know, don't read a book by the cover, but at the same time, or don't judge a book by a cover, but at the same time, yeah, that's not how our brain works. We get this information, we process it. And I want the students to be able to create a situation where something like that, a person like that, they have this person, an idea of this person, a concept that they've developed before really getting to know them, does something that surprises us. They act, you know, with kindness or goodness or self-sacrifice. And I want students to get from this, I want them to understand, how does this situation they've created reflect the initial impressions and the final acts of the characters in our story, The Outcast of Poker Flat. Initially, we see that, we have some unsavory characters, but as we go on, we start to realize, hey, deep down, these are good people, and maybe they got a bad deal here, and maybe it was undeserving, but they're making the most of their opportunities to be good, and we're really seeing some deep human emotion. We will also evaluate the actions of the main character, John Oakhurst, before the exile from Poker Flat and after the exile. And what we find out as we go through is that John Oakhurst, he always evaluates things. He's very clever. He does have heroic qualities and some brave qualities, but ultimately, as a gambler, he sees the cards are stacked against him. He cashes in his chip, so to speak. He folds his hand, and he ends up committing suicide, but not before he fashions snowshoes for Tom Simmons to escape, Simpson to escape, and stacks firewood for the girls, and leaves so as they will not lose hope. So we're going to be looking into him specifically and all the different things he was able to reflect on the story. Finally, with our closure set, we'll spend approximately 5 minutes on the last 5 minutes of class, and I'm going to have the students again kind of, to tie it all together, to really bring the lesson of the day full circle. I'm going to have the students describe a time when they did something good for another person but were not rewarded, or the act provided no positive result but instead a negative result. And I want them to, kind of analyze and apply, and it's just see how does that negative result fit into the concept of naturalism. Whereas, we're not always rewarded for good acts, or sometimes good acts backfire. Sometimes, things are just going to be the way things are going to be the way they are, and no amount of goodness is really going to be able to change that. And so students are going to write that answer on paper. They're going to hand it in to me, or if they choose, they will do it on Pages, Word, or Notability, and email that to me. I will be able to use that as the assessment, go over that, see what their thinking levels are, see where I need to adjust certain things, see what I need to go over again, evaluate new things, a new concept for the next day's lesson, and help them really understand not only the story and the characters and the idea of naturalism, but also see how it relates to our personal lives and the connections they can draw. Thank you for your time.